Hello and welcome to the Smart Connections podcast and the Talk the Path podcast. My name is Anna Sanderlin. I am a Warmline facilitator for the University of Memphis Smart Center. The University of Memphis School of Social Work Smart Research, Training, and Treatment Center aims to provide evidence-based interventions for school-based mental health programming, increase access for school-based behavioral health programming in underserved areas, offer training on best practices in telebehavioral health, develop opportunities to research the use of technology in practice, and provide direct services to the state's most vulnerable populations. You can call the Smart Center at 901-678-1636. The University of Memphis Smart Center, in conjunction with the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and the Tennessee Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, would like to present the Pathways to Behavioral Health Careers Project. The goals of the Pathways Project are to provide education and information on the various career opportunities in the field of behavioral health through presentations, increase interest in students in the field of behavioral health, provide opportunities for guidance with information regarding college, university programming that result in degrees for professions in the field of behavioral health, connect students with students in behavioral health programs and professionals in the field for further research. This podcast will feature students and professionals in the field to give a clear picture of the daily duties of these roles and how they help support their communities.
Okay, so let's see. So my name is Dr. Tiffany Wilson. I was a licensed school counselor, licensed clinical mental health counselor. I'm a licensed career development coordinator, and I'm a qualified supervisor as well. And let's see, what else did you say? So I'm currently a associate professor and school counseling program coordinator at Middle Tennessee State University. And then I'm also a telehealth therapist for core counseling and consulting out of Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay. And what was your educational background? So where did you go to school from?
So I got my doctorate in rehabilitation counseling and counselor education, and my master's of science in school counseling, both from North Carolina A&T State University.
Okay. Wow, that's a lot of letters after your signature, just your name and then every letter under the alphabet.
Yeah, my parents say it's like alphabet soup when they see my signature. So
hey, that's what almost everybody's going after. They want all the letters after their name. So that's pretty impressive. Could you tell us just a little bit more about your journey to your career pathway?
Wow. So I had an interesting journey. So I was actually in school for public administration because I wanted to work for the government. And March 14th, 2006, that day kind of changed my life. So a drunk driver drove through my house in the middle of the night. And he went through the way my house set. It was the road was kind of like up here, and my house kind of set like down here. And so he came through like this. And so he went through the bathroom, living room, and out my kitchen and landed on my couch in the front yard. And so it completely, it was about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. And so I lived beside my grandmother. And so I remember just running over there. And long story short, I quit my program because I just wasn't okay. But it was ironic. So my husband and I got married like about a month and a half after that. But the same day that happened to me, my wedding coordinator, ironically, she is a pharmacist, and she got held up at gunpoint and got robbed. And so we both had these catastrophic events happen to us literally on the same day. But because she worked for a company that they required her to go to counseling. And so I'm having all these, symptoms. I'm like, what is happening to me, right? And she's like, look at this. And she had all this information about PTSD. And I was like, oh my gosh, you're the only one who's understanding like what I'm feeling right now. And so that put me like on a journey, like, what is PTSD? Because I didn't know counseling existed, the career path existed. And so I'm just doing all this homework based on this book she gave me that her job gave her. And that following year, I applied to A&T, and I've been on the journey of counseling ever since. So, yeah.
That's so incredible. It's funny how, such life-changing things like that just
I mean, you're having a normal day and all of a sudden there's a car in your backyard and on top of your couch. And for that to happen at the same time that, she also went through a life-changing event is so, I can't even, there aren't even words like to put that into.
I do not believe in coincidences at all. Like, I think things happen for a reason. And it's been, I teach, I created a trauma class in our program, and I always start off with the Chinese symbol for crisis and opportunity, right? It means the same thing. And so I think when you take a crisis situation and you can use it for opportunity to help somebody else, I think that's one of the most powerful things that we can do as human beings, is to help other people through our own crisis or trauma.
That is so important. We've talked to a couple of people, who, especially even, one of the last interviews we did, who talked about, lived experience and how that can be so impactful to other people. And I think it's so true, even just like hearing your story, something happened that, changed your whole mindset. And, you took that experience and you've now used it to help countless other people in the field that you've chosen. So I think there's definitely a lot to be said for lived experience and, sort of shared trauma almost, like, you have those traumatic experiences. They definitely bring you closer to people. So I know the next question is, did you always know you wanted to be a counselor? But I mean, as I say, it sounds like you started somewhere completely different. Was there anything other than, this experience that sort of shifted your mindset, or maybe what was the draw to like public administration first, and, how did you get away from that?
I always wanted to do something where I was helping people. Like that was always, I worked in business, oh God, for like 5 years, and it was miserable. And the joy I found in it was that I managed a group. I worked at Enterprise Rent a Car, and I managed the drivers. And I have a thing for old people. I adore old people so much. And so my oldest one was 83 at the time, and they ranged in ages between 60 to 80, about 60 to 83. And then I had like one 18-year-old who was in college, but the rest of them were older. And so when my husband and I got married, like people are like, who are all these old people at your wedding? And I'm like, y'all better leave my people alone. These are my people. I was like, I loved making sure they were okay. Like I made sure they had everything they needed. And I was like, I've got to do something where the end of the day, it's not about the bottom line, but it's about helping people. And so when all of the whole incident with the drunk driving happened, and then my husband and I got married and I came back, I was like, I got to change jobs. Like this isn't going to work. And so I just knew I always wanted to help people. So even with public administration, I wanted to go in to do something to help with policy or something that would just help build people up and build up communities and things like that.
Okay. Do you ever think you would, dabble back in public administration, helping, with the policy end of things?
I think I like that idea for counseling. There's so much, especially in education. Oh God, right now, it's a fight. I think for laws that protect children, that can help with people getting the education that they need and that they deserve. So I think even in the realm of mental health, there's so much work that needs to be done in that area. We don't have enough providers, which I really adore and love that this is here, like y'all's program is here. And there's actually even curriculum that Tennessee Department of Education has as a CT pathway that I think only 3 schools in the whole state uses, which is really unfortunate. And so there's so much work that needs to be done to increase providers and accessibility to mental health in the state. So I think, there's a lot of work here that I feel like I'm fortunate to be a part of.
I like that answer a lot. Our next one is, if you could go back in time, would you have taken a different pathway? Why or why not?
So I'm a person, I try not to dwell on the past, because the past is the past. And I think without even I wouldn't be the person I am today if that hadn't happened. So I don't I'll try not to dwell on the past. So it is what it is. It was a horrific event. And from it, it's like I developed a fear of heights that I never had before that I still deal with. But I just learned, you just do things afraid and you just keep pushing. And I think who I am today as a person, as a wife, as a mother, as a friend, as a daughter, all the different hats I wear, like, I think I wouldn't be that person without that event. And so I can't say that I'm necessarily would change anything. Of course, I wouldn't want nobody to go through something like that, but I like who I am and what I came from it.
Yeah, we've talked to other people who I don't think anybody has said that they would do anything different. I don't think we've met a single person who said that they would change their pathway, but we have had a couple people who have said, I wouldn't do it different, but here's all the shortcuts you can take so you don't have to go through the same thing. So
yeah, I think education. Yeah, I wouldn't change that part about it. I wish I would have known more about the mental health field. But just in my family, everybody is in business or they're teachers. It's one or the other. And I didn't want to do either. Neither one was my thing. And so, sometimes we don't necessarily choose our careers. It kind of chooses us. And so that's kind of what I felt like happened to me.
Do you ever feel like that's hard to have been the person to branch out in your family to, go it alone?
It cracks me up that you asked that question, because I remember in my dissertation defense, my dad was like, I didn't know you knew so many big words. And he was just like, it tickled me because my parents were like, they've always been very supportive, but it was like, they just didn't understand what I did. And so it was a lot of education, I think, for everybody. And just again, like how I approach things that have been traditionally said or done in our family. Then I'm like, well, have we thought about this way or think about it this way? And so now it's like, so Tiffany, what do you think? Or, it's kind of reversed. It's funny. I don't tell people what I do for a living. And we have 3 students in our program right now. It's hilarious that because the activities our boys participated in, we have twin boys. And so they've come in contact with us, and then they would find out I'm a counselor, and after they joined our program, that I'm a faculty member, and they're just like, we did not know you were a counselor. And I was like, I don't, because the people either one, they look at you like you're crazy, or like I don't know, they just or they want advice and things like that. So I usually don't even tell people what I do, because people they'll wear you out with lots of questions and things.
Yeah, I definitely. I have a brother who's a police officer, and he says, the kids that he meets are fine. They, they have the like childlike wonder. They're like trying to figure everything out. But adults will ask, some of the most random questions.
Yes.
And I think that's true of a lot of professions. When people's only perception is what they've seen on TV or, that odd thing that people have like come across, it's hard to explain, what really goes on. I know when I started my own therapy, I was telling a friend, I was like, it's like, this is hard. Like, we're doing hard things in there. And she was like, what do you mean? I was like, and so I explained to her what we had done that day. She was like, that is not what I thought therapy was. She was like, I thought you were in there sitting on a couch and he was, asking you questions with a notepad. I was like, not even a little bit. That is not even a little bit what happens in there.
It's definitely a journey. And I think that's why I love the field so much, because you really get to figure out who you are as a person and then bring that into the space and figure out what type of therapist or counselor, whatever specialty you have, you just get to figure out your personality as a counselor. And that to me is like really cool.
I think that's got to be so important, having your own, making sure you have your own identity throughout all of it. And, being able to bring that identity into the work you do. And it's got to be so hard to stay true to that too, when you encounter so many different people and even so many other counselors who have their own way of doing things. So, sticking to what you know and sticking to what you're good at is, I can imagine that being challenging sometimes.
You have to, I think, to be an effective counselor, you have to truly embrace who you are as a person and appreciate who you are as a person, because you can't be good at anything unless you do that. So, yeah.
All right. Well, our last question for you is, what would you suggest to young people who are trying to identify whether or not a possible career in the behavioral health field is right for them?
Oh, wow. So I think finding maybe people to talk to. I'm a big proponent of having mentors. I'm a big fan of just calling people up and say, hey, can you tell me your story? I think that's really important. Also, of course, doing your homework, researching the different fields, because mental health is very broad. And there's so many different areas you can go into. And so I think doing your homework on that, going to counseling yourself, right? See what it's like to sit in the chair. It's amazing to me. I've seen so many people who have become counselors who don't believe in counseling. And I think that's not okay. I don't think that's okay. Because you got to know what it feels like to be vulnerable, to sit in that chair. But I think that's the first step. I really also think that's the first part, is just go and see what it's like for yourself. But yes, finding mentors, people who are already in the field, ask questions, find out what their stories are, find out what the different pathways are to be in mental health. Because again, there's different levels and different ways that you can be in the profession. And just be curious, be very curious and ask questions.
I think I hadn't quite really grasped onto it. You said, there are some counselors who don't believe in counseling, and I don't think that had quite hit me. There are so many that there might be counselors out there who, don't know what it feels like to be the vulnerable person on the other side. And I know I'm not a counselor, but I can relate to the people that call our warm line and say, I have all these questions and I don't know what to do with them. And I can relate to those people because, I've been in counseling myself. So I even just knowing how important that is for the part that I have in it, it's hard to imagine that there are people who have gone through the training and, gone through all of the work to get there to, have them not quite understand how important it is.
Yeah, you have to. A lot of people, I think, become counselors for different reasons. There's the article, I can't remember the author's name. I read it years ago, but it was talking about the different personalities of people who become counselors. And some people are what I consider myself like a wounded healer. Something happens to them that pushes them to become a counselor. But then you have the people who have the godlike complex, right? Who want that control for whatever reason. And so I think you have people like that who choose not to participate, and it's their perspective isn't necessarily the best. So, yeah.
Wow. Well, Christy, do you have anything?
No, I just really enjoyed hearing about your experience. It definitely struck me earlier when you said that there had been 2 instances of something traumatic happening, which really speaks to the high level of need for therapy and counseling, and absolutely raising more awareness about how it can be beneficial. So I'm just, so thankful for that added perspective, because never would I have thought that a person's poor choice would lead to the development of a flourishing, beautiful career that impacts so many, because you're teaching, then you're providing direct service. So, that awful moment led to something that, helps so many. So again, it really speaks to the high level of need. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I definitely agree with either trying counseling or asking questions about all the diverse ways you can get help. One major thing this project has done is shown us that there are literally trillions of pathways to get to your moment or get help. And I think that it's going to be so important that we keep voices amplified, across this process. So thank you so much for sharing all of that. And yeah, you with twin boys.
Yeah. Oh, it's great, hey. They're great. They're sweet boys.
Hard, I don't know when you had them, but like, was it right when you were like getting in the thick of all of your training and everything?
It was. They were one when I started my doc program.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
And I tell everybody thinks that's so crazy, but when I tell you, I feel like I had grace because they were good sleepers. I could lay them down at 6 o'clock at night and they would not wake up till 6 o'clock the next morning. Starting in about 3 months, they slept all day and they slept all night. And
That's
so,
incredible.
yeah, it was incredible, honey. Listen, God was good to me because, and then my husband traveled. The job he had at the time, he traveled a lot, and so I had the grace to do it, and I felt like, okay, this is the time. And it worked out. And so bedtime stories, a lot of time was theories and it wasn't traditional.
Not only do you know all those big words, but your parents' grandbabies know all those big words too.
Listen, they have such high social emotional intelligence. It is amazing, like listening to them talk. And when they argue, it's so cute because they'll just, well, I feel.
Oh, that's amazing.
I love highly social emotional, children. They're my favorite. Listening to them talk and, the interactions they have, that's incredible.
So it's fun. So that part has been really cool. That's been really cool. So, yeah. So I really appreciate this opportunity and be able to share anything I can do to spread the word about how to support mental health and people going into the field, especially people of color. We need more counselors and people of color in this profession so badly. So anything I can do to support that mission, I thank you for the opportunity.
You're welcome. Thank you for being here. We appreciate you taking the time for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll let you go.
All right, bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in to listen to our podcast brought to you by the Smart Connections podcast from the Smart Center at the University of Memphis, as well as the Pathways to Behavioral Health Careers Project. If you or anyone you know needs any information from the Smart Center, please contact us at 901-678-1636 or email us at smartcenter@memphis.edu. You can also learn more about us at our website, memphis.edu/smartcenter.